Hello everybody, welcome to 27. A few of you have expressed a desire to see some more detailed videos on the work that I'm doing to Fred, so I thought that fitting an electric fuel pump would be the ideal way to do that. Now, if you've seen the videos, you'll have seen I've had problems with Fred breaking down consistently once he gets really hot. It's basically fuel vaporisation. I've tried all sorts of things, including shielding the mechanical fuel pump, and nothing's worked. So everywhere it's pretty well known that the solution is to fit an electric fuel pump. So I've got one here. I went for a German made one, a Huco. This is a low pressure fuel pump because this is one of the really early cars. It's also a pump which can be used both on positive and negative, so it has both terminals here. Okay, so first of all, here is the pump. It's a German made Huco, as I mentioned. So it's got, I've already extended the wiring there, but it's got a negative and a positive, so you can use it on any car. Some of them ground on the mount, so then you have to be careful whether you've got a positive or negative earth depending on the car you have. If you have a normal negative earth car, just do the reverse of what I'm doing. On mine, positive is going to be earth and negative is going to go to the fuse box at the front. If you've got a normal negative earth car, you will use that to earth the car, and that will be the positive, so as per normal. So don't let that confuse you, that's pretty simple. This is the mounting clamp that came with this pump. I have made a little rubber isolator for it because I've heard that these can be really noisy and I want it to be the least noisy possible. Now with this pump, it actually detects when the floats close and stops pumping, so it's not a constant velocity pump, but some of them do carry on going no matter what. Even when the floats close, it's always running. This one doesn't. It will only run when it detects that the needle's open. So that's quite a good feature. I've got some fuel line here. I've got various connectors and so on for the fuel line. The way I'm going to mount this, I'm planning, we'll see if it works, but I'm planning to mount it at the bulkhead just behind the seat there, and I'm going to be using a rib nut tool to do that. Now the way this works is you put it on here, you drill a hole into the side of the car. When you pull it, it crushes it like this. Let me see if I can bring it close enough so that you can see there. I'm not sure how much you can see, but essentially you can see two little discs there. That's the bodywork would be in between, so it sort of brings them up and crushes them together, and then you have a captive, essentially, nut for any bolt to go through. That's what I'm going to use to mount it. And lastly, something completely unrelated, I've been looking for a key ring for Fred for quite a while, and I found something that I think is ideal. And this is actually made by my uncle in Italy. It's handmade. It's made out of olive, and it's just like a wooden, it's supposed to be a dog bone or something of that kind, but I think it will work really well on Fred. It will be a great little thing. I know it's simple, but it really pleases me. It just sort of completes something that was missing before. And then I've got my drill and so on for the holes. The wiring's already extended, so let's jack up the car and go. Okay, so just sliding under the car, there's the diff there. Now, this is the bulkhead here. You can just see the fuel line there. This is the bulkhead that I want to attach the fuel pump to. The fuel tank is just back here. You can just see it there. So the pump should be just about below the fuel tank line, which should work. Well, the fuel tank, yeah, height. So it should work around there, and there's just about enough room to squeeze it in. I'm going to drill some holes, get the rib nuts in, and then after that also look at how to do the electric wiring, and I'm going to have to get into that fuel line as well and cut that up. Right, fuel line, right, the fuel line has been cut. And I used a pair of snippets to do that, metal clippers. because I was worried about sparks and so on. Now time to drill holes into the bulkhead. I've marked it off there, you can see, ignore that third mark in the middle. Left and right, or up and down there, those are the marks for the clamp, and I'm going to just fit that now. Okay, so as you can see, the 2 riv nuts are in. That's the bottom one. At the top I've just put in the screw or bolt just to show you how neat they are. Once it's in, it's basically a captive thread. And you can just put a screw in there, as I've done there, and I will now mount the fuel pump. I've made a little rubber isolator block because I've heard that these pumps can be quite noisy. So you can just see it there. It's just cut out of rubber really to go on the end here. Okay, so that looks quite solidly mounted. I'll have to just connect up the pipe work and then the electrics. Okay, everything is installed, as you can see. So the fuel line was cut there and rejoined with the new rubber fuel line which goes into the pump. It comes out here and then rejoins the fuel line just there. With the wiring, you've got the red wire going as an earth, so you can see there where I've scraped away from the chassis and drilled a hole and put the red in as an earth. The black wire in this case, so you will do the opposite if you have a normal negative earth car, but the black wire, which in this car has to go to the live switch, that is running along here and then in a hole drilled into the floor. So I need to tidy it up, but it comes up through there, you can just about see it, and runs along the side. There's some more wiring there, and then it goes through the dash and it comes out here and will shortly be connected to this terminal, which is just here, which is actually in the fuse box, which is switched from the ignition directly, so it should work. So I just got to hook that up and see what happens. Okay, the pump is fitted and the electrics are roughly fitted. I haven't bothered tidying them up yet because I want to see if it works. I completely forgot that as well as bypassing the mechanical fuel pump, which I've got there, I also need to remove to make a blanking plate for where it meets the engine, otherwise oil's going to come spewing out of there. So got to get on with that now. Okay, I'm using a Dremel to cut out the outline. It won't be pretty, but it will do the job, and I don't have that much time. If you want to see something done properly, by the way, have a look at Home Built by Jeff. He does these really good videos of all the work he does at home. I'm not really geared up for it. He does a much better job, and I think much more interesting than what I've shown you today. So have a look at his channel. Okay, so the Dremel isn't working, so I'm having to use something really not right for this job, so don't ever copy what I'm doing. This is the fuel pump, the mechanical fuel pump that was there before. So this part goes into the engine, and then there's a little lobe that pushes it like that, and you can actually see there's a little bit of fuel coming out. So when the engine's cold, it seems to work just fine, but it's attached to the engine here, and I think that's where the big problem is. The transferred heat coming through here heats this up to the point that the fuel just starts to vaporize. So this is going to go. Now, I'm going to need something to put on the engine where that hole is, otherwise I was going to come spurting out. I've made a little blanking plate based on the gaskets that were there before. It's quite rough and ready, but I am quite pleased with that. Also, you can just sort of see here, this the fuel line here was counting really on the mechanical fuel pump to be supported to a degree. So I've made up a little bracket. It's not pretty again, but it should do the job, just to sort of help hold that in place. There's the blanking plate, which is fairly neat. I think I'm going to need a couple of washers. Fuel pump installation done. So you can see here, this is the original pipe going down from the carbs. I've made up a bracket here with a clip to hold it in place, because before that both of these bits of fuel line joined here at the fuel pump and it actually supported them. There's nothing to support them now. I've also made another bracket there which clips onto where the fuel pump used to be, with a little circlip there, and this is the bottom part of the fuel line coming from the tank, and that's to support that, because again that before was supported by the fuel pump. And you can see the link here. It's not the neatest job possible and I'd like to have done it differently, but I didn't want to cut any of these fuel lines to keep it original in inverted commas. So the only option I had was this. The positions they were in before, it was too tight there, but this should work, so that's fine. Then round the side I'll just show you the electrics. So under the pump I just made a hole in the floor, and you can see that's the negative wire, which for most people would be the positive, that comes through, runs along there, joins the loom here. I don't know if you can see that, joins the loom there, and then here goes up through the dash out of the front of the car. Sorry, I know the lighting isn't great, but it's coming through here along. You can just see it again there. You see the brown wire comes in and into the fuse box, which is linked to the ignition. So when the ignition goes on, this comes on as well. Next, I think, is just to see if it's going to start. So let's give it a go. So a bit of choke, ignition on, battery on. Listen to that little engine. Oh, I really love this little car. Just listen to it farting away there in the back. Such a likeable sound. Most of the pumps are criticised for being too loud. This one you literally cannot hear. To really see if this has cured the fuel overheating issue, I will need to take it for a longer drive than this. I'm not going to be out for sort of 40-50 minutes today. But I do believe that having taken the mechanical pump out of the equation, the fuel won't overheat anymore and it won't boil up, and the car should be fine. As long as it's running now, touch wood, then it should be okay. Thank you all for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't. It looks like the car's working. I'll give you a further update once I've taken it on a proper long journey, but for now I'm quite happy with all that. So thank you everyone, and see you soon.